Hello everyone watching at home, you're with Adelaide Eternal. I'm Sarvan McClinton bringing you our 7-minute 7-point series. Now we're talking about Elves today. This is a deck tech and it's a deck that was popularised by Lachlan Wardsmith to some amazing finishes and probably one of the causes of the recent Moxen pointing up to 3. Now just a disclaimer that this list is not finalised because the loss of Mox Pearl is pretty significant and what we need to do is decide exactly where it fits in the meta at the moment and how the deck will evolve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you the shell and I want you to tell me, after testing it for a little bit, see exactly where it sits. At the moment, I've placed Wasteland in here with our free point after Mox Pearl has been removed. So this is going to evolve. It's going to keep evolving as it has for the last year or two. And what we'll do is let's talk about the shell. So this is how the deck works. All of these mana dorks are critical for your turn 1 play. Now, we've got Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch, Elvish Mystic, blah, 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 all the way through down to this unique mana elf, which is Wild Growth. And we have Utopia Sprawl also operating the same function. In the late game, you get to play them and use the mana straight away by playing it on an untapped land. In the early game, operates basically like a mana dork, tapping for 1 the following turn. Now, Quirion Ranger is a unique kind of mana elf because if you don't have a land drop, then you get to return a tapped forest, replay that forest, tap it for mana, but also in the process, the same activation untaps a creature. So you can untap one of these guys and tap that for mana too. So it's actually, in certain situations, very, very strong when you have another mana dork and you don't have a land drop. Scryb Ranger is basically the same ability, but it happens to be on a 2-drop with some incidental bonus abilities. The 2 mana dorks, so to speak, like Wall of Roots, are, not your most powerful, but they are useful in the deck. And, a 0/5 is nothing to shy away from when you've got a meta filled with Zoo and the like. And sometimes you just need a critical mass of mana-producing dorks. And that's why we have things like Green Sun Zenith, which usually you want to hold till the late game to find something really, really useful like these powerhouses or somewhere in the middle. But in the early game, if you don't have a mana dork, you can just search out Dryad Arbor, which is essentially 1 mana, X is 0, and this guy taps for mana the following turn. Looking at the mana base, you have other colours. You've got the Splash, Bayou, and Savannah Temple Garden, giving you additional utility in the form of Deathrite Shaman, Black Mana Drain, and white in the form of Voice of Resurgence, which shores up your control matchup, and Qasali Pridemage, which always has a target, and Exalted is nothing to shy away from where you get to beat with a 2/2. Knight of the Reliquary is a very useful utility creature, finding Gaia's Cradle, and that's what Sylvan Scrying does too, as well as crop rotation. But now that we have Wasteland in the deck, there's some additional utility to this guy in the strip mining. But we also have the ability to find, say, Gavony Township, which turns your army of 1/1s into 2/2s, 3/3s, and 4/4s incrementally. Very, very hard for opposing mid-range decks to beat, but also hard for control to interact with, making your 1 mana creatures into actual threats they have to answer. And oftentimes the sideboard is where they have Anger of the Gods and Toxic Deluge. And that's why, if we skip over here, we see these cards, the things that generate multiple creatures, are powerful. So ramping out these guys on turn 3, for example, allows you to play them off curve. Normally, people laugh at, your mono green decks for your little brother, kid brother wanting to play big dirtily dorks, but in reality these guys are coming down off curve. They're coming down on turn 3 and they're powerful. Sigarda makes an army, but incidentally also shores up your anti-tendrils storm matchup because you can't be targeted, and Titania is a 1-man army, as well as Whisperwood Elemental. These Planeswalkers are also ways of generating incremental advantage by dropping creatures every turn, but in the late game you get to break those mid-range matchups wide open by drawing a card for each creature you control, and this guy also drawing ridiculous amounts of cards too. In the middle of the deck, we have the glue that holds the deck together, the things that fit out of your low curve and high curve. So you have Nissa that fills the same kind of role as these guys, which is pumping out a plant and then minus 2ing twice even, which lets you make, again, a powerful army. Your little guys become huge, or just sits around building your plant tokens. Then you have these little pieces of glue, like Eternal Witness, returning a land when you really need to continue your curve, or returning a key piece, Voice of Resurgence against a control deck after they spell snared it. Then we have Rex Sage again, destroying those pesky artifacts and enchantments. Tireless Tracker has proved itself countless times in Legacy lands as a way of card advantage, and Lingering Soul's the same thing, also against control. Natural Order's a way to turn one of these 1-mana dorks into Titania or into your highest curve. Craterhoof Behemoth, again, that's proved itself over in Elves in Legacy. And Hornet Queen's quite good at breaking open those mid-range matches. If they don't have a Siege Rhino and Trample, you're able to just stalemate the board and swing with a flyer and then try and just keep gaining incremental advantage off your Planeswalkers. Prime time, well, this guy's always good. So let's scroll over to our sideboard here. Now, I've separated the sideboard out into 3 categories. We've got our anti-control. Choke, it's your back to basics kind of parallel. And the control deck's largely relying on single cards to break their matchups open by going, hey, I'm going to lock you out of the game with 1 card and allow me to get pseudo card advantage. You get to do the same thing back at them at their vulnerable mana base because they needed to play so many basic islands. Terrastodon are really good at destroying 2 islands and you get a 9/9 and a 3/3, and they have a hard time getting back into the game. Thrun, no questions about this, and the green Soul Ring Carpel of Flowers. In your anti-creatures pile here, Kitchen Fink's great against any form of aggro, also mid-range occasionally, but Master of the Wild Hunt, really good at picking creatures off, but also incremental advantage. And Viridian Emissary, you like to just play this guy and throw him under the bus, ramp yourself at the same time as saving some life. And Arachnogenesis is a pretty cute little card that is surprisingly good. Remember, you don't have to block with those spiders. The Walking Ballista is really useful as well. X is 5, play that, take off 4 of those counters, kill 4 of their mana dorks. They have a hard time getting back in the game, and you just keep them down by making this guy pumped every turn. And this is your anti-everything else, so your combo, anti-combo. You have the anti-mud to kill all those artifacts, Reanimator, because Reanimator has a resurgence. This is kind of good against the pseudo combo deck, which is mono red. And we have Eidolon of Rhetoric, which is actually the true anti-storm card in this. If I was personally choosing to run this deck, I would run maybe at least 1 more anti-storm card, dedicated anti-storm card in here. And that's entirely up to your meta. So this is your meta flex slot base. So what I want you to do is sleeve this deck up, try it out, see if you like it, tell me what happens with your testing and where you think the points are going to go in the future. But the shell of the deck is strong, as it's proven countless times. So have a go, sleeve it up, tell me what you think. We're Adelaide Eternal, thanks for watching.